Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Panay, and in today's podcast, I'll be reading a short essay I wrote in 2020 called Looking on Devastation. I wrote this essay during the bushfires of that time. You may recall in Australia, the bushfires were so severe that the sky was black during the day, and there were lots of harrowing images available around the world of people trying to escape the flames. I remember one with a mother and her two small kids desperately seeking shelter under a bridge within the water as the flames lapped around them. In those fires, 19 million hectares of land were consumed, which is 47 million acres. And I live fairly close to the city, yet the smoke, you could smell it. It was everywhere, and the haze. There was no way you could not know about these fires. So as you might imagine, it was distressing to most people to walk out and have that reality all around them, the smell, the darkness. And as a Course in Miracles student, I needed to process this. And so this is what this essay, Looking on Devastation, is about. And the phrase looking on devastation points to a very important principle from the Course. It comes from the workbook under a short heading called What is a Miracle? And this is what it says. A miracle is a correction. It does not create nor really change at all. It merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. And I think you've got the heart of A Course in Miracles right there, and certainly the heart of what a miracle is. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't create or change anything out there, but it looks on devastation and reminds us that what we see is false. This podcast is about that sentence and about flushing it out and how we can apply that practically in our lives. And I'll start by reading this short essay that I write during that fire season. Looking on Devastation, from Reflections on A Course in Miracles, Volume 2. Early yesterday morning, I stepped outside to take a walk in the cool air after a hot night in which I got little sleep. After a few minutes, I began to feel a bit queasy from all the smoke. Australia is currently experiencing its worst bushfire season on record, and though I live relatively close to the city of Melbourne, the fires in the states east have been raging for days. In a news report I saw recently, the smoke from the nation's fires have drifted across the Pacific, reaching South America. I cut my walk short and headed home, thinking about the huge number of people and wildlife affected by the fires, and I noticed a twinge of anxiety. That's a red flag for me these days. The daily news of suffering and catastrophe was beginning to cling to me like the smoke, and the words mental hygiene came to mind. It's a term counsellors use when people describe their angst over global affairs and the news of the world. Stop reading the paper so frequently, they might say. Don't watch the news for a couple of weeks. Watch some light, bright movies instead. As a student of A Course in Miracles, I had another course, pardon the pun, I could take, by realising that my unease was the result of looking upon devastation and mistaking it for the truth. This is no easy concept to integrate into our experience. To look upon the chaos and suffering around us and know that despite all that we see, not one note in heaven's song was missed, is a tall order for we who still identify as mere mortals. I think of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, unmoved by the many terrifying and tantalizing manifestations of Mara, the god of illusion and evil. His heart was consistently full of compassion. He knew he wasn't of the world. He knew the world was a dream. The Course tells us that there is no hierarchy of illusions. An illusion is an illusion is an illusion. This is why there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One illusion isn't harder to overcome than any other. But what does overcome an illusion actually mean? It means no longer giving it the power to take away your peace. It means no longer perceiving it as the cause of your distress. If we're upset by what goes on around us, it's because we have already made separation, death, and the destruction of heaven real within our minds by joining with the ego as our teacher. We're told that projection makes perception. What we react to on the outside reflects a belief on the inside. In relation to the fires, the footage of koalas and kangaroos, singed, distressed, looking for shelter, is heartbreaking, as is the wide-scale destruction of their natural habitat. Homeless and in pain. I think we can all relate to that. It's a theme that plays in the background of our mind whenever we identify with the ego and its thought system of separation. Then comes the anger. Who is responsible for this devastation? In Australia, we know exactly who to blame. The public is directing their indignation at politicians for not adequately funding fire services and not heeding the warnings of experts about the upcoming fire season. And then, of course, our Prime Minister holidayed in Hawaii while his compatriots back home were learning about fire tornadoes and the emergence of other cataclysmic weather events. I don't hold a hose, mate. Poor choice of words from the PM, but great fuel for the opposition and for our need to find an evildoer out there. What better target than an uncaring authority? Nothing so blinding as perception of form. The only way we can get beyond the distress associated with what is happening around us is to know on another non-bodily level that everything is okay, that we are safe, that we are all safe. To do this, we need to ask for help from our inner teacher, whose presence reminds us of our eternal safety and helps us to perceive shared interests instead of victims and victimizers, calls for help instead of attack and negligence, and to know that we are all the same. We're all scared when we identify with the ego. We all feel alone. We all feel vulnerable. We all act out of self-interest, the powerful and the powerless alike. This awareness is the earthly reflection of knowing we are all one, all safe, all at home. From this place of no blame, we are then in a better position to do whatever we feel moved to do regarding a particular situation. The source of all inner suffering is the mind's decision to identify with guilt and separation. The term compassion fatigue comes to mind. It's the name given to the kind of burnout therapists experience after dealing with the suffering of others for a long period of time. Particularly if we are in any kind of helping role, over-concern or feeling drawn into the suffering of others makes our own feelings of separation and loss very real. Pretty soon, the world seems saturated with sadness, and the temptation to throw ourselves under a bus, as one friend put it, can appear out of nowhere. When the world seems too much with us, we have been taken in by the form of all that's going on. It's all the same. It either speaks of love or is a call for love, but either way, our response is to extend love once we've accepted the Holy Spirit's message that everything is really okay. The world might not be okay. Our body might not be okay. But we are not our body, and the world is not our home. This is how we forgive the world. We acknowledge what it has not done to us. It hasn't taken away God's peace, nor can it. That's the end of the essay. But I'd like to flesh out some of the ideas around being able to look at devastation and see beyond it so as to maintain our peace or re-establish our peace. First, I'd like to look at lesson 132, which is called I Loose the World from All I Thought It Was. And I'll start with just the first paragraph. What keeps the world in chains but your beliefs? And what can save the world except yourself, capital S? Belief is powerful indeed. The thoughts you hold are mighty, and illusions are as strong in their effects as is the truth. A madman thinks the world he sees is real and does not doubt it, nor can he be swayed by questioning his thoughts' effects. It is but when their source is raised to question that the hope of freedom comes to him at last. So this bit, nor can he be swayed by questioning his thoughts' effects. So the effects of choosing the ego as our teacher is to see a world of devastation, to see what's going on in the world form-wise, and to stop there, to arrest our mind in a thought system of decay and death as our reality, to see the idea of separation from God, the destruction of oneness all around us, reflected in the world around us. And so the ego wants us to believe or wants us to feel that everything really is devastating, that we see the devastation of form around us, and that we feel that, yes, devastation is the truth. Death is the truth. So I'll skip quickly to paragraph 3, sentence 4. You have enslaved the world with all your fears, your doubts and miseries, your pain and tears, and all your sorrows press on it, and keep the world a prisoner to your beliefs. Death strikes it everywhere, because you hold the bitter thoughts of death within your mind. And then paragraph 5, change but your mind on what you want to see, and all the world must change accordingly. Ideas leave not their source. This central theme is often stated in the text and must be borne in mind if you would understand the lesson for today. It is not pride which tells you that you made the world you see and that it changes as you change your mind. So the world we see changes. Our interpretation of the world changes as we change our mind. If we are looking through the eyes of the ego, it means we want to interpret what we see around us through the belief in devastation. Why? Because devastation says that God's oneness is finished. It says that we have separated from God and that we are no longer as God created us, which means that we are shameful and guilty, but it means that we are special and separate. And that's what we want to cling to. It doesn't seem like our distress is something that we want, is something that has been chosen. And by distress, I'm talking about the inner experience, not the outer forms in which, things happen. I won't swear, but, life happens and stuff appears to go wrong in form. That happens. But we are responsible for how we interpret it. And if we interpret it as something devastating, it's because we want to interpret it as something devastating. And it can only be devastating to a body. And so that means we want to interpret ourselves or identify ourselves as a body, as something separate from God. And again, that includes identification with guilt and with shame. Now, paragraph 6, sentence 2. There is no world. This is the central thought the Course attempts to teach. Not everyone is ready to accept it, and each one must go as far as he can let himself be led along the road to truth. He will return and go still further, or perhaps step back a while and then return again. But healing is the gift of those who are prepared to learn there is no world and can accept the lesson now. Now, this is the really important part. What does accepting there is no world mean? Does it mean looking around going, this world is an illusion, yada, yada? No, it doesn't, because that's really working against yourself. We are still identified as bodies living in a world that seems real to us. So theoretically, it's important to note that there is no world as part of the Course in Miracles metaphysics, but it's not something to lean on during the day when you're distressed. There is no world. That's just denial. This is the important sentence, I think. Their readiness will bring the lesson to them in some form which they can understand and recognize. Again, their readiness will bring the lesson to them in some form which they can understand and recognize. And what that means is that life will provide an opportunity for you to experience the truth, that you can look on devastation and still feel peaceful. That defies the laws of the world. As it says here, others find it in an experience that is not of this world, which shows them that the world does not exist, because what they behold must be the truth, and yet it clearly contradicts the world. So if you can look on devastation, yet not lose your peace over it, then that contradicts the world. And that is how you have the experience that there is no world. You don't necessarily think, there is no world. You just have an experience that defies the cause-effect laws of the world. Now, again, it's easy to fall into denial about this. For example, like I described about the fires and the footage of the animals the native Australian animals, the thing about the native Australian animals is largely they're not predators. They're so lovely. The kangaroos, the koalas, they don't prey on anything. They're not like tigers and lions. And so you know, there's the symbol of an innocence just getting burnt and losing their home, and it's just hyped up. It's even more so with the marsupials, the native animals of Australia. So, you know, my first response wasn't, that's just not real, that's not happening, that's an illusion. That would be denial, to keep me away from the feelings which I had as part of my identity within the world, as a body, as a person in the world. And that was, oh my God, that is awful. That is so awful. My heart, you know, really feels for them. And then for the people suffering as well, those images are heartbreaking. The course is about being a correction. It's not about denial. It's about meeting you where you are with those feelings and then helping you come to a position where you can witness and stand within the world from a place of peace and thereby be truly helpful and truly loving. So it's to have the feelings that you would, inverted commas, normally have, but to open your mind to a different way of perceiving. And that opens your mind to the miracle, which is a correction. It's not a substitute for what you experience. It's a correction. You can't avail yourself of the miracle if you go straight to, oh, the world's an illusion, because that's denial. You're not getting in touch with the thoughts that really need correcting. Let yourself be normal and ask for help to see things in a way to help you regain your peace. I think this is also a very important point for anybody dealing with trauma. Unfortunately, people can go straight to, oh, you've had that trauma? Oh, yeah, but it's an illusion. The world's an illusion. You're not your body. That person's not their body. That person, it was just a call for help. And jump straight to all the Course in Miracles answers, when really the process of dealing with trauma involves allowing yourself to get in touch with the feelings and to be normal. Go through a normal process first. You know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with the 5 stages of grief and loss. And I think there's a lot to them. You have denial, anger. I can't think of the order right now, but denial, anger, bargaining, all those kind of things. And eventually you get to acceptance. And acceptance involves growing from the experience. You've accepted what has happened and you can see a way out from your grief. But there's a process you get to before you get to acceptance, and you can't shortcut that. Well, I think it's the same when dealing with trauma. You have to let yourself go through the normal process and not try to impose a Course in Miracles principles or platitudes onto that. There is a time for everything. I think of what it's like when you scrape your knee and you get a wound. Let's say there's some bleeding and then a scab has to form, and over time the scab will fall off once the skin underneath the scab has healed over. And let's imagine that during that time of the healing, you are also mindful of practicing A Course in Miracles lessons associated with your fear. Let's say you have fear over what's going to happen to the scab on your knee. You also have resentment over how the scab on the knee came about. Perhaps somebody pushed you, or maybe you fell down some stairs that were poorly built by your partner, or any number of things, any number of grievances associated with the scab on your knee. Well, Just because you are processing A Course in Miracles along with it doesn't mean that you don't let your knee, your physical body, go through the normal healing processes that it needs to go through. The scab takes time to form. The skin underneath the scab takes time to grow across. And then finally the scab falls off and all is good again. Well, it's the same with our psychological body. You need to let the psychological body do what it needs to do to heal while you still do the course. And sometimes it might be to let some of those course principles go by the wayside. What you can take with you, though, all the time, even in those acute early stages where there's lots of grief, lots of anger, lots of self-blame or blame of others associated with a wound and with a trauma, is you can take the idea that you have a helper, that you have a companion who can help you through the process, who can help you see things differently, but don't enforce that seeing upon yourself. Don't enforce the seeing of, oh, it's an illusion. Oh, I'm just a body. Oh, that was a call for help. Don't enforce all of that upon yourself. It's like there are stages where first aid is appropriate and then there's the ongoing care. Well, with trauma, the first aid is to let yourself go through the process and don't impose principles upon yourself, but do make use of the comfort of knowing that you have an inner teacher who will guide you through these very difficult kind of first aid stages of dealing with your trauma. And that might be to guide you to see a therapist. Nothing is by coincidence. If you see a therapist who is helpful, it will be because on some level you are able to join with them on the level of the mind and vice versa. It won't necessarily, or won't, according to the Course, be what they say. It will be the content behind their words. It will be that they don't judge you and you don't judge them. But you don't even have to think about all of that. You say what you need to say to the therapist. They say whatever they need to say to you. But it's that willingness for both of you to join on the level of the mind, to not judge each other, that provides the healing. But again, you don't have to be conscious of all of that. You just go and do what is normal. Ask for help in that first aid process. And then once you start to feel like you're getting to the other side, you'll know when you're ready to then incorporate more of the Course's principles consciously as tools to process what you have been through. I think that probably my biggest gripe about how people interpret and use the Course and teach the Course is that they don't have an appreciation for process and the need to be sensitive to what the moment calls for. For example, someone going through a dark night of the soul who has been studying the Course for years and then enters into that period of desolation where they think their whole spiritual aspirations have turned to dust and they're going backwards in their spirituality, and it's a really desolate time of inner desolation. Well, the principles of the Course, the world is an illusion, the atonement principle, all of that, it's not appropriate to be hounding someone or to be hounding yourself with that kind of message when you're going through that process. Some periods in life, some deep processes call for patience and a type of passivity of the intellect and of thought, and are more about the heart leading you through it. The heart's desire for help, the heart's desire for comfort from Jesus, from that love, yet the desolation that you feel at the same time. It's a very deep process that has to be respected. It's also a very fearful time. Whether it's based on trauma or a dark night of the soul, you are going through a period of intense anxiety as well. and usually depression alongside that. And so ideas such as the world is an illusion, you're not your body, all that kind of thing, it's not helpful at all because it just increases fear. If the ego is already threatened, then increasing the fear is of no help at all. Saying the body is nothing, an illusion, the world is an illusion, such concepts need to be put aside during those times. Better concepts to take with you during those times of crisis are things like one day at a time, this will pass, and hold on to that connection with the inner teacher, even if you can't feel it. Trust that it is there and really hold on to that and let yourself fully process the feelings, the beliefs, and know that if your goal is healing, then you will receive whatever you need to come to some forgiveness. But you won't have to impose that upon yourself. It will come by an overheard conversation, a television show you see. It could be anything that sparks the forgiveness process for you and helps you come to some appreciation of a bigger picture surrounding all that's involved with the issues at hand. This is how forgiveness occurs through that process rather than hammering yourself with a course principle. To close, I'm going to return to the essay topic and the discussion of the fires. When we look on devastation, on the devastating effects in form of what is going on around us, the ego would have us interpret things in a way that says, God is dead, and that is the real source of our angst. So, though like the Australian Prime Minister at the time, we might not be able to hold a hose, the choice within our minds to perceive what's going on with the Holy Spirit's help is the way we can truly help everybody involved, because minds are joined. In essence, our choice for the Holy Spirit's vision, which would lead to an experience of peace based on a reassurance that truth remains untouched by what our eyes behold, is helping everybody be healed of the trauma of separation that they are reliving in perceiving devastation around them. With this in mind, I'll turn back to that part in the workbook called What is a Miracle? And we began with the sentence, a miracle is a correction. It does not create nor really change at all. It merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. I'll end with the last paragraph from that section, paragraph 5. The imagery is very fitting for what we've been talking about with the fires. And so here is the conclusion to the section, What is a Miracle? Miracles fall like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world where starved and thirsty creatures come to die. Now they have water. Now the world is green. And everywhere the signs of life spring up to show that what is born can never die, for what has life has immortality. Thank you for listening. Tune in again. Bye.